Lori here. I'm here today to do a slightly delayed Top 10 Tuesday for you. I'm still posting it on Tuesday, but I think I missed the week a couple of weeks ago because I was sick that week and didn't feel like filming. But I'm going to do it today, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But the prompt was, tell us the top 10 reads that you have read recently, sort of like a mid-year check-in. Like, what are your like if the year would end today, what do I think my top 10 reads of the year would be? And at the time of this filming, I have read 78 out of 100 books, which is pretty awesome, I'll be honest. But I'm just going to kind of go through the ones that I would say would be on my top 10 list. Most of them I still do have because they're physical, and I tend to keep the physical books that I love. Some of them are ebooks, and one hasn't even come out yet. So you'll get my sneak peek thoughts on some of them, which is exciting. So the first book we are going to chat about is one book that was definitely going to make this list because I love this series so much, and that is Chain of Iron by Cassie Clare. I really enjoyed this book so much. I think I read the ebook of it, but oh my god, Cassie Clare has a way of sort of making your characters go into really intense situations and you as the reader being slightly devastated. I love the Shadowhunters world. Before this series, I would say my favorite series was probably the Mortal Instruments series. I did like all the other ones, but that series was ones that I really enjoyed the characters. This series is set in Regency, England, and it follows the children of the kids from the Infernal Devices series. And oh my goodness, this book was incredible. I love the characters so much. It was great. Definitely tear at your heart emotions. It had a mystery element, but found family is always at the heart of these stories, but also just a fun world that I'm familiar with. I cannot wait to see where book 3 goes. This book was so good, and I definitely want to reread Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron before Chain of Thorns comes out. I think that's the next title, but so good. Definitely had to make this list, and really impressive. Definitely a 5-star read, and will most definitely make my end of the year list, but I just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek. I've also been getting into Regency romances this year, and this was like a perfect balance between Regency time period, but also fantasy, adventure, kick butt, and a lot of strong female characters, but also a lot of just fun diversity that I have not seen in that time period before, and I really enjoyed it. Book that I am going to chat about is Lost in a Neverwoods by Eden Thomas. This was definitely a recent read for me, but oh my goodness, I devoured this book so quickly. It's a Peter Pan inspired retelling with a mystery twist, and you follow Wendy in the aftermath 5 years after her brothers goes missing, and the same thing starts happening again. When her and her brothers went missing, she was returned 6 months later, and you start encountering what really happened to her. But when a young man named Peter Pan comes to town, she has to kind of go about solving the mystery. This book was really amazing. I loved it. It was hard to put down. I loved the main character. I loved the mystery element. I will warn you, the last 5 pages might kill you a little bit in the emotions. I might have cried on the train reading it, but I really, really like this book. I love Eden Thomas's writing as well. Very fairy tale-ish, but also a strong mystery element. I love books that have a strong mystery in any genre, and I think this book was superb. I also thought the author handled the Peter Pan elements in a really unique way, and I loved it. It had elements that reminded me of the good years of Once Upon a Time, but also just was a really, really fun read. And I just thought it also tackled like grief, anxiety, depression, more grief in a really interesting way. And I cannot wait to see what Eden Thomas writes next. I love Cemetery Boys. This book might be my favorite out of the 2 books in the series, and I really, really enjoyed it. So definitely check this one out. I think it's a perfect fall read, but also like a perfect summer read because I found it to be a quick pace read and one that definitely captured me from page 1. Spoke in the previous clip, they are not in a series. They have nothing to do together. They're just written. They have nothing to do with each other. They're just written by the same author. Cemetery Boys is Eden Thomas's first book, and Lost in a Neverwood is the second book. But I love them both. Definitely really, really enjoyed that one. The next book we are going to chat about is one of my more recent reads, and that is Take Me Home Tonight by Morgan Matson. Guys, it's been quite a bit of time since we had another book by Morgan Matson, and this book was amazing. I loved it so much. It basically follows these two girls, Kat and Stevie, and they decide to go on to a New York adventure unplanned, and a lot of things go wrong, and they wound up getting separated from each other, no phones, in New York City, and it was a delight to read. As a former theater kid, as a theater teacher, there was a very heavy theater component in this book that I loved. This is also the first book, I believe, that Morgan Matson wrote in multiple point of views. There's also a major plot point in here that I thought it was so ingenious the way she did it. But at the heart of this is friendship, growing up, self-discovery. You also do see other characters from the previous books. You see some characters from Amy and Roger's Epic Tea Tour. You see some characters from the one with the Since You've Been Gone. I think it was Since You've Been Gone. Oh no, maybe it wasn't I think it was Since You've Been Gone. But you see a couple of different like side characters in the story, and I loved it. I love books about friendship. She does that really good. Her Unexpected Everything book had a very, very strong friendship element, and this book sort of took the cake with that. But I just love seeing them in New York City. I work in the city. I go to the city a lot, and it's actually funny this week that I read it. Grand Central Station plays a really big part in the story, and I was there twice this week, and I've never been there before, so I just thought it was very, very fun happenstance. There's also animals involved, like city hijinks, and just hilarity. I love this book. I definitely want to do a reread of her whole canon because it's been a bit since I read some of her later books in the series. But I really, really enjoyed this book quite a much. Read it really recently when it immediately came out. And if you have not checked out Take Me Home Tonight and you want a rom-com set in New York City featuring friendship, pets, and some really cute romances, I would check it out. That I loved recently was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I have had this book sitting on my shelf for so many months and years. I will admit, I like the Shadow and Bone book series. Wasn't the biggest fan of the Crooked Kingdom duology. I know that's like such a controversial opinion, but I am going to do a reread because I don't think listening was the best medium for that book for me. But I absolutely adored this book. I love being in Nikolai's point of view. I love the characters that were chosen. I love that this is pretty much, in some ways, a direct sequel to Shadow and Bone, but Nikolai's at the heart of this story, and I loved it. You also file Zoya and Nina. It's actually really, really funny because I was watching Shadow and Bone as I was reading this, and it gave me some really good context of what was happening. It does do a pretty good job of summing up the story, but I would recommend, if you have not read those books, read those first before you dive into this, because I feel like you might be a little bit confused. But I love this, gave it 5 stars. I have Rule of Wolves that I should be reading recently, in the next couple of weeks, because I want to tackle it. But I love this book. Definitely enjoyed it. Probably more than her other 2 series, and I will definitely check out Rule of Wolves quickly, but I loved it. I love Nikolai as the main character. I always said that Nikolai was my favorite character. This book maybe just proved it, but I really, really like this and would definitely recommend you check out this series if you've not done it yet. So, definitely another recommendation from Laura. The book that I'm going to chat through is about A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kimmerer. This is the last book in the Cursebreaker series. And I love this. I have loved all of the other books in this series. This was a one that sort of wrapped up the other 2 books and gave it a solid conclusion. I will say this, and I may get some flack, but I think this is probably the best Beauty and Beast retelling I've ever read. Like, overall, as a series, I thought it did the Beauty and the Beast myth so well. Also tackling a lot of other elements. I love the characters. I love that this book sort of combine the characters in A Curse So Dark and Lonely and A Heart So Fierce and Broken, sort of made them all sort of come together, and I really loved it. I love her writing style, super captivating. Probably one of the best fairy tale retelling series I've ever read, but definitely my favorite Beauty and the Beast retelling series, and I am a big Beauty and the Beast fan. That's probably my favorite Disney princess to date. I love Belle. I blame the fact that she's a reader and I'm a reader. But I really like this one, and she just announced that she's coming out with like a book set in the same world, which I'm definitely going to get my hands on when it comes out next year. But loved it. Love seeing the characters again. Love the conclusion. Definitely check out this series. If you at all like Beauty and the Beast, check out this series because it was great. So another book that I want to chat through is probably one of the first books I read this year, and that is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. I really like this book. I haven't felt that this book got nearly enough love and attention, but I loved it. I will say, I love Alexandra Bracken's writing. I also am a big fan of Greek mythology. This book sort of took a different take at Greek mythology, and I loved it. It sort of combined Percy Jackson with the Hunger Games in a really fun way. This book also tackled anxiety, grief, depression, all of those elements in a fun story. So you basically follow this girl named, what was her name? Lore. And she is sort of dealing with the aftermath of her parents' deaths. And in this world, Greek gods walk the earth, and every, I think it's like 8 or 9 years, they have the possibility to be killed. And if you kill them in this battle, then you become a Greek god in their place. I think I'm doing a better job of explaining it, but that's basically the summary. And Laura's kind of sucked back into this world when a god comes and sort of begs her for her help, and things sort of unfold from there. I love the side characters in this story, and I love Laura. She was a really hard character to be in our head sometimes because she was going through so much. There was a romance, there was a side stuff. It was great. I really liked it. Very, very fast paced. Alexandra Bracken always writes stories that capture me from page one. I think at some point I had like 3 different copies of this book. It was also an Owl Crate book. But I really liked it. Would give it 5 stars. And I always love anything Alexandra Bracken writes. So definitely enjoyable. Would definitely check it out. I would say there was a few pacing issues in the middle, but other than that, I really enjoyed it a little bit with the next one because it doesn't come out until September. I read it a little bit early, but I just have to gush about this. The next book I'm going to chat about is Never Saw You Coming by Erin Hahn. Definitely add this to your September queue because it is incredible. It's also the companion book to More Than Maybe by Erin Hahn, which I simply adored. And here is the pretty cover that I have to show you. Micah and Meg. You met Meg in book 1. She is Veda's best friend, and Meg's world is turned completely on its head in the first chapter of this book. She realizes that her whole life has basically been a lie, and she sort of goes on an adventure to kind of figure out who she really is, and you learn in the first chapter that her world is sort of not what she's expecting. And she was born in a very, very Christian household. That's sort of the whole plot line of this book. And she goes and sort of finds another side of her family and meets this boy named Micah, who's also dealing with the after effects of a scandal in the church, and their paths wind up crossing. I think Erin Hahn says it best. This book is a really important read. It looks at the church and church life in a really interesting way. There was a lot of conversations that were had on page that I don't think I've ever seen before. They also do talk about women's reputations in this book, and I thought it was really effective how they did that. I also love the romance between Meg and Micah. I thought, again, I love books that have dual point of views. So if you do that in a story, you're pretty much going to get me from page 1 because I love when you see both sides of a romance. They're both dealing with a lot in the story. This book sort of reminded me a little bit of the Tamara Island Stone book. I can't think of the name of it right now, but there's a book by Tara Allman Stone. Can't think of the name of it right now. And then it also reminded me of The Lion Woods by Ashley Elston, which had a very, very similar plot point. And also Call It What You Want by Bridget Kimmerer. So there's a lot of elements in this story that was like very, very, it had elements that sort of reminded me of a couple of different books, but I think Erin Hahn did it in a great way. She tackled religion and religion life and religious life in a really interesting way, and it sort of made me think about those person lives in an interesting way. But Meg and Micah took the cake. I love them so much. It was a great read. Really enjoyed it. 5 stars. Definitely check it out when it comes out in September. You will not be disappointed. That I really enjoyed is the only middle grade read to make this list so far, and that is The Last Fallen Star by Gracie Kim. Here's a photo. I was given an early copy from NetGalley, and I have to admit, when I saw the tagline of this book or the comp title, I like literally wanted to devour it. And the comp title for this was Witches Meets Korean Witches, and for those that don't know, I have a deep love of Teen Wolf season 3 when they talked about kitsunes and stuff. So whenever I hear of Korean mythology, I'm always like, okay, game, where is it? But witches is another like sort of magical creature that I love, or magical element I really like. This book was a delight. Like a pure delight. I love this book. It had some of my favorite elements. It had found family, a trio of characters, witches, adventure, sisterhood, found family. It was really incredible. I loved it so much. I don't want to give too much away, but you have to check out this book. Definitely, I would say this and probably Arush Shah are probably my 2 favorite Rick Riordan Present series that I've read so far. I have to still read. I have to catch up on a couple of other ones, but I really, really love this book. I loved Gracie Kim's writing style. Definitely gonna check out more by that author in the future. So good. I just love the imprint so much. I love mythology. I love learning about more mythologies. Gracie Kim did a superb job, and you should definitely check out this book for sure. The next book is the only Regency romance to make this list. This was a hard choice to make because I liked 3 books in this series a lot, but Romancing Mr. Bridgerton had to make my list. Watching the Bridgerton TV show and don't want to know future couples, just fast forward until you see the next picture. But this book is Colin and Penelope's book, and oh my goodness, delight. I think I loved it even more because I don't think you realize how much I love Penelope in the TV show. So just reading this and just imagining her and Colin on page was incredible to me, but I love this book so much. It was friends to lovers, friends to more. Great. There was also a really interesting plot point. If you've watched the TV show, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. That's sort of untangled in this book that I really enjoyed. Definitely loved it. I'll give a shout out to Sir Philip with Love and An Offer from a Gentleman, which were another books in this series that I also really enjoyed. But this one definitely was a standout. And the last book I am going to chat about in this video is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. Like an adaptation of his book Long Way Down. I admit I love the graphic novel. Someone did say that we should also listen to it, but I just thought the visuals of this book were really, really superb and really, really well done. But it basically follows this young boy in the aftermath of his brother's death and sort of looking at how gun violence has affected his life, and he's sort of going down in a building to do something, to make a choice, and every single floor he's encountered by someone that died from gun violence. That's basically the premise, and it was really impactful. I think the visuals really helped to just like solidify the points to me, but I love Jason Reynolds' writing. I've just finished listening to Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism in You, which was remixed by Endem X Kendi, and I love that book as well. That's another like quick plug point. That's another like nonfiction read that I really, really enjoyed. This was just really impactful. It really got me in the emotions, and I wasn't expecting that, but very, very emotionally resonant book. I definitely want to read more by Jason Reynolds in the future. I have a few books on my TBR for him in addition to Stamp that I just finished, but solid read. And then one just fun book that I read recently that just was a delight was Good Morning, Good Night by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I don't have a picture of it, but it was just it basically was him summing up his tweets and how Lin wakes you up in the morning. He's like, good morning, and he gives you an aspirational thing. He goes about his day, he tweets, and at the end of the day when he's going to log off Twitter, he sort of ends his phrase. It was a delight. It was a 40-minute audiobook. If you're ever having a rough morning and need something to just pick you up, I'd recommend checking out that one as a bonus recommendation. But let me know what are some of your top recent reads that you read that you really liked and really enjoyed. And I will see you guys for my next video. Bye.